Recently, I had the need for curved molding because of some curved walls in a house that I was working on. Traditionally, the way to curve a piece of trim was to cut kerfs in the back side of the molding. That's cutting the board at the bend from top to bottom, about 1/16 of an inch from cutting through the board. It kind of looks like this when you're done, and it's actually pretty flexible. Yes, you do have to patch where the blade cuts through the front of the trim, but for small pieces, this technique really works. The problem is that these pieces are easily broken. As you can see here, I just snapped my board. A better solution to a curved wall is to order polyurethane flexible molding. This stuff is expensive. 12 feet of 5 1/4 base costs about $136. That comes out to $11.36 a lineal foot, compared to $1.60 for the MDF base. It cuts and works like regular trim, but it needs quite a bit more pre-paint prep than regular trim. Seems like there's a lot of extrusion marks and small dimples all over this piece, so I'm patching that prior to painting. Definitely more prep work than your standard piece of baseboard. I like to pre-paint all my trim work. It saves me time on masking, and it's a cleaner look. 1 coat of primer and 2 coats of paint on this piece should do it. The paint that I use is Benjamin Moore Advance, and the color is White Dove. In my opinion, one of the best white paints for trim. I let the paint dry for about 2 hours, and now we're ready to install. Check out how ridiculously flexible this piece is. You can make almost any radius with this molding. The wall has a pretty tight curve in it, but with this polyurethane trim, it's going to be no problem. One issue with polyurethane moldings is that they definitely follow the contour of your wall. If your wall was poorly framed, every little deviation is going to have a tendency to show, more so with this trim than any other. Most installers like to use construction adhesive to glue down this molding. Since I work by myself, using glue on this piece with the hardwood and the finished walls may have gotten messy, but if you have a second person, gluing down the trim isn't a bad idea. Here's my kerf piece in a comparison bend. The kerf piece makes a bend without breaking. However, if I cut a 9-foot long board with a kerf in the middle, it's going to be quite challenging to keep it from snapping in two. The tape on the wall indicates where my studs are. I use a 2-inch 18-gauge nail to fasten the molding to the wall. It takes about double the amount of nails that I would use in a standard piece of trim. The reason for that is you have no stiffness to this piece, so if it's not nailed or glued, it'll tend to start looking a bit wavy. Now I just caulk where the trim meets the wall, so there are no gaps. This is just your typical baseboard prep. I use a wood filler to patch up any of my nail holes, and there are a lot of them to patch. Now I apply my final touch-up coat of paint on this trim, and we are done. Polyurethane curved molding is expensive, costing 7 times more than conventional MDF trim, but it can make a big difference in the finished product, especially on a curved wall. Well worth the extra money in my opinion. It's normally a special order item. Most big box stores carry it, taking about a week to get it in. But it's definitely the way to go. Nothing against kerfing, but this is way easier.